Growing up, it was always fun watching cartoons, especially the ones made by Walt Disney Studios. There was action, magic, and jokes for the whole family to laugh at. When they started making movies in 3D animation, it was crazy. It was like they'd merged real life with cartoons and resulted in computer-generated movies. Now that Disney's been using 3D animation in their movies for several years, I've noticed that they haven't brought out any new movies in 2D animation, which is sad because I grew up on those Disney cartoons. While browsing through the internet for news articles on Disney and their animation decisions, I learned that The Princess and the Frog and Winnie the Pooh were the last 2D animated films that Disney produced. And although they had good praises from critics, these movies didn't get as big a crowd in the theaters as the company had hoped. An article in The Guardian titled "Disney Turns Away from Hand-Drawn Animation" has quotes from Disney's chief executive Bob Iger, as well as John Lasseter, chief creative officer at Disney Animations and Pixar. "To my knowledge, we're not developing a 2D or hand-drawn feature animated film right now," said Iger. "There is a fair amount of activity going on in hand-drawn animation, but it's largely for television at this point. We're not necessarily ruling out the possibility of a feature, but there isn't any in development at the company at this time." Knowing that hand-drawn animation isn't being developed for movie production is really depressing. How can they turn away from such quality animation? It's not enough to say they have TV shows in 2D animation, because personally, I feel like the cartoon shows that Disney makes today are not their best work, and it feels like they're shoving hand-drawn animation in a corner, restricting it from being seen by a larger crowd, while CGI gets the most attention. "Unfortunately, 2D became the excuse for poor storytelling," said Lasseter, who pioneered the CGI animation revolution with Toy Story in 1995. "The general consensus was that audiences did not want to watch hand-drawn animated films, which is of course completely ridiculous." The struggle of keeping hand-drawn animation alive reminds me of when I learned about the beginning of photography. When cameras were first invented in the mid-1800s, people were using them to take portraits, landscapes, and still life, which is what painters would do before that time. But if there was a device that could do the same work in less time and look more realistic because the camera could capture the actual scene, such a time-consuming medium was deemed unnecessary from that point on, right? Wrong. Did painters throw their hands up in the air in defeat and say, "Well guys, they beat us. Cameras are running us out of business. Might as well pack our stuff up and abandon our talents forever"? No. Instead, they found different ways to express their artwork through the painting medium. Besides, with photography in its earlier days, color wasn't available and they could only capture photographs in black and white, but there was definitely color in paintings. To me, animation can easily be compared to realism and modernism. I feel like 3D animation is similar to realism because they can manipulate the animation and make it look as real as possible, while hand-drawn animation has a realistic look, but it's also stylized. You can tell that there are lines drawn to separate the characters and the objects and all the different figures around them. As I was going through the website for Walt Disney Animation Studios, I came across a project of theirs called Paperman. It's a short film in black and white about a man trying to get a woman's attention after sharing a moment with her at the train station. This short film is a mix of CGI and hand-drawn animation, which is exactly the kind of collaboration I like to see from Disney. This is one of the great examples to show that these two kinds of animation can thrive together and coexist, rather than one having to rule out the other. The director of Paperman wanted the short film to be shown other than just in CGI because he believes that CGI isn't the only way to do animation, and voices his opinion in a short video interview from the website of Walt Disney Animation Studios.
When I came to Disney, one of my first impressions about being here was that there was drawing everywhere. There's a deep legacy of it being in the final product, right up there on the screen, that goes back, to the very beginning. And, there's something about that hand of the artist that I really admired so much. And it seemed like, why do we have to leave these drawings behind? Isn't there a way that we can get these drawings to move on top of the CG? Can't we get the CG to carry those drawings along with them? But as good as that is, there's part of me that believes that that kind of stylized photorealism, it can't be the only way that computer animation can look. There's got to be other ways that animation can look. And I feel like bringing the drawing back to it has a great deal of potential.
I also believe that with CGI and the animators wanting to make it look as realistic as possible, they kind of limit themselves at the same time. With hand-drawn animation, they can kind of play with the color and the line work. Like in Pocahontas's Colors of the Wind, when they have all the swirling lines and the different colors kind of bleeding in with each other, like the blues and the reds and the purples. Or how in The Lion King, while Simba's singing "Just Can't Wait to Be King," one minute you're looking at normal land with the green grass and the blue sky, and the next it changes with blue tree trunks and the red bushes, and they have a different mixture of colors, and I just believe that you couldn't practically do that with the 3D animation because it wouldn't look as realistic. To tie all this together, I feel like with animation, it shouldn't be a struggle of which is better, which one should be used, and which one should be left behind. If photography and painting are very different forms of art and they can still coexist today, that animation can do the same. That you can still have that 2D and 3D look. It's sad to know that Disney doesn't plan on making any hand-drawn animated films in the near future, but with Lasseter and his interest in the medium, it gives some hope that someday they'll go back to making the hand-drawn animated films, because if they keep it just on television, not as many people are going to see it, and they should both be equally displayed